Hey, did you know that when you operate out of secure identity, you actually attract? Whereas if you're operating from an orphan spirit, you have to chase. And here's the thing, you can't do both. Today we're digging deeper into Deborah and the palm tree principle. You see, Deborah held court under a palm tree. People came to her. She didn't market herself or prove herself or even convince anyone that she was qualified. She just sat and they came. Meanwhile, you're exhausting yourself chasing approval, trying to prove your worth, or performing for any kind of validation. But here's the truth. It's going to wreck you. But when you operate from a secure identity, you attract. When you're operating out of orphan spirit, you chase, and you can't do both. Hey, I just want to interrupt real quick to remind you that if you go check the description box below, there is a link to a completely free workbook, Bible study workbook that goes along with this teaching series on Deborah. Go check the link, download your workbook, and dig in. So the first thing I want to bring up is the palm tree. We can find that in Judges 4. Let me read the scripture for you, okay? She held court under the palm of Deborah, and the Israelites went up to her to have their disputes decided. See, what this reveals is that she had a place. It was consistent, it was known, and it was established. People came to her. She didn't chase them down. Her authority was assumed, not proven. And she was secure enough to be found, not desperate enough to pursue. Now, if she'd been operating from the orphan spirit, she probably would have gone door to door offering her services or would have performed in order to prove that she was worthy. She would have chased validation through achievement. She would have marketed, convinced, and persuaded people that she was worthy enough to hear their case. But Deborah didn't do that. She operated out of daughterhood. She operated from rest. She let her own authority attract rather than perform. She trusts that what was hers will find her. And she didn't confuse activity with fruitfulness. You see, the palm tree didn't chase anyone, and neither did Deborah, and neither should you. Which brings me to my next point. Where are you chasing instead of attracting? Here's some key indicators of a performance pattern. You're proving your worth. You may be over-explaining your qualifications. You may be listing credentials to justify your voice. You may be performing competence in order to earn respect. Or are you chasing opportunities instead of creating value? Some areas where you may be seeking validation will show up as like constantly checking for approval signals, modifying yourself based on reactions of others, needing external confirmation before moving forward, or even fishing for compliments to get some reassurance. Another key indicator is overfunctioning. Are you doing more than what's required to be enough? Do you take on others' responsibilities in order to feel needed? Maybe you're just exhausting yourself in order to prove dedication. And maybe you feel like you just can't rest because resting feels like you're abandoning your worth. Another area is convincing and persuading people. Are you trying to make people see your value? Are you defending your position instead of just stating it? Do you need everyone to agree before you act? Are you chasing consensus instead of operating from clarity? So I want to ask you a question. Right now, where are you chasing that you should be attracting from? Because here's what the orphan spirit won't tell you. The harder you chase, the further it runs. But when you operate from a secure identity, what belongs to you comes to you. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is attracting versus chasing and what the difference is. When you are attracting, you create things and you create value from a place of rest. You operate in authority without having to prove yourself. You can trust the process and let the results speak for themselves. You can be focused on your assignment, not the approval. And it becomes magnetic because it's secure. But chasing creates activity from anxiety. It performs to prove its worth. It controls the outcome. Like, I have to be in control of this. It needs constant validation, and it's focused on perception, not purpose. And quite frankly, it's a repellent because it's desperate. My husband has been in sales throughout the years, and he always says a desperate salesman is a dead salesman. People are repelled from desperation. If you come off as too desperate, people will back up. But if you come off as secure, you actually attract them to you. Matthew 6:33 gives us a biblical framework from this. It says, seek first the kingdom, and then all these things will be added unto you. Notice it doesn't say, go chase all these things and maybe the kingdom will approve. No, it's kingdom first, identity first. Operate from rest. That will equal and bring attraction. But here's a hard truth. You can't attract from secure identity while performing in insecurity. The two don't exist together. You're either sitting under your palm tree, operating in authority, or you're running around trying to convince people that you're qualified to have a palm tree. You can't have them both. You've got to pick one. Now, my next point, how is the palm tree principle applied? How is it applied in your work? Well, you can create value instead of chasing opportunities. You can build authority instead of proving your competence. You can let your work speak for itself instead of performing expertise, which is really just pretending. How about in our relationships? How does the palm tree principle apply in relationships? Well, you can set boundaries instead of chasing connection. Be yourself instead of performing acceptability. Let people come to you instead of trying to convince them to stay. What about in ministry or your calling? How does the palm tree principle apply there? Well, operate in assignment instead of seeking validation. You know what you've been told to do, so just go do it. And it's okay if people approve or not. They didn't call you to it, God did. Speak truth instead of performing palatability. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be harsh all the time, but be clear. Don't water things down just so people don't get offended. And here's a hard one. You can trust God's timing instead of trying to force open doors. This one's tricky because there's a part of ministry that requires partnering with God, and then there's part of it where He partners with you. I don't necessarily believe that I'm just going to sit back and wait for God to move, because I believe we have a responsibility, and Scripture supports that we have a responsibility to walk forward. And we may not see the whole path illuminated all at once, but we at least know what the next step is. However, sometimes we get excited about things and we go push open doors that weren't really ours to push open. And then the next thing we have is an Ishmael. There's a balance to walking this out, partnering with God and letting Him partner with you, and just taking the next right step into what you know and believe that He is calling you to do. And this can be true across all the boards, in your relationships, in your job, your career, your business, whatever it is that you're operating in. That is applicable to every aspect of your life. How do you apply the palm tree principle to your personal life? You can rest in identity instead of performing for your worth. And here's a big one. Show up as yourself instead of what you think people want you to be. And that can be scary, but it's a huge truth revealer as well. Stop auditioning for the approval that you already have. Now let's go through an attraction audit, shall we? Ask yourself these questions. Where am I chasing approval instead of operating from authority? What am I trying to prove that I actually should just be simply operating in? Where am I over-functioning out of fear instead of resting in my identity? Here's a fun one, and I really want you to spend some time on this one. What would my palm tree look like? What's the place that I would operate from consistently? Who am I performing for instead of being secure enough to be found? So this week, I want you to just practice this. Identify one area where you're chasing. Just one. And then I want you to ask yourself, what would it look like to sit under my palm tree here instead? Don't change everything. Just notice one thing, just one pattern, interrupt it, operate from rest instead of performance, and then see what comes to you. Hey, would you do me a favor? If you're getting value out of this, would you hit the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel? Like it, share it with a friend. It really helps so much. In our next episode, we're going to talk about when men actually need you to go first. We're going to talk about Deborah and Barak. Having boundaries without people pleasing, how to maintain your authority when others are afraid. This one's going to challenge everything you think you know about strength and submission. Hey, listen, I hope you guys are having a great day. I hope you're enjoying this series, and I'll see you next time.